Ivoriel, on the second level of the Tower of the Sun, also known as Minas Tirith, also known as the White City, by the Northern Canal, there's a park. It's officially called the Fernglad, which is the Park of the Valiant Dead. It has like these statues, a great many statues of old heroes, some of them from the Second Age even, and walking past statues of Elendil and Romendasil, who conquered the Easterlings near the start of the Third Age. You move past the towering statue of Erendil, where students and workers sit in the sun and enjoy their lunch. You move through the park past the swans that kind of lays in the canals until you come to the usual spot, somewhat hidden away with a great tree branch hanging high above, dappling the statue with sunlight, is a bench where you often sit. And you begin to eat lunch that you have prepared and trying to enjoy a bit of the sun before heading back into the dusty Scholarium. And there's these ducks that kind of stand and stamp their feet and quack loudly at you in protest as you eat your bread instead of giving it to them. And watching all of it with a gentle smile is your ancestor, Faramir, son of Denethor II.
Ivoriel takes in the people and the quiet, and she thinks of the stories of Faramir, the Prince of Ithilien, of Lady Eowyn, and of their stories, their legacies, the things which are still written in stone and parchment, the things so beyond what she could imagine herself doing. And yet, that blood is in her veins. And there's something that calls to her. The unanswered questions, the things which are lost. She knows she will seek them out. One day.
There's this unusual noise. This is usually a very quiet part of the park. Not that Faramir isn't a hero, but his statue isn't quite as large as the colossal one of Elendil that has fountains and things attached to it where people will like sit and watch ducks and swans and things like that. But just a little bit further away, quiet, but you can hear this like shunk, shunk, shunk. You can turn to see this large man in the blue and black tabardry of the king. He's got a shield and spear in hand, and this like helmet that covers the entirety of his face. You are Ivoriel?
I am?
He nods. Excellent. You are summoned to council with His Royal Majesty.
A council? When?
He hands you this like piece of paper, and it's indeed sealed with like the royal symbol of the king. Looks like a week from now at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Does it say anything about why?
It says, to Lady Ivoriel, you are summoned immediately to attend the court of His Royal Majesty, Eldaramir, to join in a council and discuss questions of border expansion and safety of the realm.
Ivoriel is puzzled. This is not normal. It's very odd that she, of all people, would be sought out for this. But she quickly wraps up the rest of her lunch and goes back into the Scholarium, looking for more text, more information about border expansion and what threats there might be, determined to come to this meeting with as much information as possible.
Yeah, you can like find maps that have like expanded over the past few centuries to where the Reunited Kingdom itself sits. Places that old Gondor didn't exist, certainly up in Arnor, which was abandoned for a long time. And you can like study those borders, and you can like follow them, like running your finger across from Arnor, like down over the mountains by Gondor and then towards Mordor, where you can see even there as far east as the Ash Mountains that there are King's men.
She looks at the map. At Osgiliath there, the barrier, in many ways, between that dark land and home. And she wonders if that might be the direction of expansion, or perhaps it's to the north. And then there's also to go east again. There are so many choices.
In the east, Thyamar, you're on the balcony of your holdfast looking out over the mountain passes and the endless snow that is your home. High above, you can see this swarm of Morgul bats fluttering and moving in unison towards one of the caves in the arid Lithwi, which are the Ash Mountains. The snow is like falling heavily all around you, blowing onto the balcony and onto your old black boots. Looking out, you can see the people of your fort hard at work, fires burning, hammers pinging as the evening is like setting in. You can also see the scouts' horses in the yard, and there's not enough of them, you think. Less of a returned home than set out.
Theomar will turn his usual grimace into like a more dour, dripping frown, stomp down the stairs, caking his boots up with mud as he makes his way down towards the men, trying to seek out a captain or sergeant to report.
Yeah, you can find him. Not too badly injured. He'll salute when he sees you, my lord.
Where are the rest, Sergeant? What happened?
We, you were right in your suspicions. Orcs have moved into the foothills of the ruined holdfast at Arakor. Not many, they say. Well, we thought. Less than 50, it looks like, for now.
You gave them battle.
We had no choice. They were behind us, somewhat unexpectedly, climbing up from beneath the cliff.
Did you discover from where?
Some filthy crack in the ground.
50, you say? That's not so many.
Not for now, Lord, no.
Best we root them out early.
He nods and like looks to the men, many of whom are like sweating, many of them are bleeding. And he'll look to you. A day, Lord, to recover, and we'll go back.
I'll raise my eyebrow at that.
Half a day. The men must eat, and some of them are wounded.
Have their wounds seen to. Those that can ride shall come with me this afternoon. We'll head out for Arakur.
He nods. It's clear that from his face that he doesn't want to go back, but he knows better than to argue. But then there's a, my lord?
Speak.
Your chamberlain. He's like standing on the concrete of the stair, not having descended down into the muck of the courtyard. A letter, Lord.
He'll extend a hand and make the man cross the muddy threshold to him. He'll take the letter in his hand swiftly, and his eyes will drip down first to the sender's name before he goes to the top and reads internally.
Yeah, you can like see from the seal that it's from the White City. And it says, to Lord Theomar of Heligar, you are summoned immediately to attend the court of His Royal Majesty, Eldaramir, to join in a council and discuss questions of border expansion and safety of the realm. You await you at the White City.
Reading that, he'll turn back to the steward and say, I have no time to read this letter. I will see it as soon as I return this afternoon, and hand it back to the steward and turn his sour frown into a full stony grimace. I imagine he's been summoned before by the men in their White Castle, in the White Tower, away from the vigil that he should keep on this matter and that, though it's a thing he cannot and would not refuse, though forestalling it time enough to root out the infestation of Arakur is foremost at his mind before he will set to travelling back west.
Yeah, I think you would have been summoned many times by various lords, but rarely, if ever, never probably by the king himself. But you can set to gathering those men you have and making your way towards the ruined holdfast at Arakar, with the intent of destroying the orc within. Grimthane, you're sitting aside your steed, catching your breath, taking a drink of water from his skin. It's been a long chase, but you finally caught him. Corralled in front of you, hemmed in by 3 others of the household riders, is a filthy black-haired man. He has a short sword in one hand, and he snarls at you. Do it then! This is one of the Dunlendings that had snuck into your family's land. And there were 3, and they had stolen some sheep over the past few weeks. And today you were ready for them, and you chased them down. One was taken down by Elfric's arrow. Another had leapt into a river and escaped, but this one is the 3rd, and he stands before you.
Grimthane gets off his horse and hefts his spear as he walks towards the man. You wish for death? You've certainly earned it. And without any further hesitation, he thrusts the spear into the man, piercing his flesh.
Yeah, he'll fall, crumpling to the ground, and you can pull the spear out and flick the blood or wipe it in the long grass. This is not the first, nor the second, nor the 10th time that this has happened. These Dunlendings sort of never-endingly sneak into the lands of Rohan to steal and take what they cannot themselves keep a hold of. Mostly they just steal, thankfully, at least in this part of Rohan. Though you've heard reports that in further to the west, that there are much more warlike Dunlendings that will lead skirmishes into Rohirric lands and burn farmsteads and things like that. And you spend a lot of your time as a sort of rider here, chasing down these sheep thieves.
Definitely. And he looks up from the corpse he's just made of the Dunlending and looks around at his company and surveying the Rohirric landscape around him. Seeing what's become of the other Dunlendings that they'd caught up with.
Yeah, the other one that had been felled by an arrow is brought, and they're searched, and you can find paltry bits of bread and stuff that they would have stolen. Little carvings, wooden carvings that would be maybe valuable to them. Things like that, but they don't have much. The other one seems to have gotten away, jumped into a river and swam to the other side, and you decided to leave him rather than give chase. But you can hear this shouting coming now. Grimthane! Grimthane!
Turns his head quickly.
You can see one of the young squires is galloping towards you. It's Framgar. You would know him. He's a boy of maybe 11 or 12. He's barreling his horse as quickly as he can towards you, and he brings it to a halt, and the horse whinnies crazy and stands up on 2 legs for a moment before he brings it under control. Grimthane, a letter for you.
Calm yourself, Framgar.
It's from the king.
A letter.
Grimthane, from the king.
He pauses at that and looks over his shoulder at his company, at his fellow riders, and he grits his teeth and holds out his hand to take the letter from Framgar.
Much like the others, it's an invitation, a summons rather than invitation, to come to the White City at your soonest convenience to discuss border safety.
You've done well, Framgar. Take a rest and take some water.
Yes.
The men will show you. As he reads over again the letter, pondering its purpose and why he has been summoned. When did this arrive?
Just now. I came to you as fast as I could.
You've done well. And he immediately turns and readies himself on his horse, Garmund, and says to his fellow riders, "Give the lad some rest, some water. I make preparations to ride east immediately." As he mounts his horse.
Yeah, your companion, Elfric, he gives you this look with a raised eyebrow. You'll go to the king?
"I've been summoned," he says with a bit of a smirk.
Make sure you wipe your feet before you walk
dare not
into the
deny
White
the
City.
king. Sorry, what was that?
Make sure you wipe your feet before you walk into that White City.
They'll welcome me with open arms, I'm sure. Though I wonder if any other of our kin have been summoned as well. And he looks to Thramgar, who's catching his breath and being fed some water from a water skin by one of the fellow riders.
Yeah, he looks back at you and he shakes his head. Just you.
So be it. You'll have finished cleaning up here. The final coward who ran will hopefully tell his kin that sheep thievery is not so simple in these lands. Not while the riders of Rohan yet defend. And with that, he urges on his horse. He's got all of his traveling gear with him, so he's not going to make any stops. He just starts heading east at speed.
Okay. Arahale, you're lounging atop one of the many balconies of the 6th level of the White City. And from up here, you can see Pelennor Field. You can even see Osgiliath in the distance in the mountains across where Mordor begins. You've heard before that in old days there would be this constant cloud of darkness above Mordor, though now it just looks like quite an imposing mountain range, snow-capped and clean. As you look, you're playing chess with your friend Arahad, sitting, I guess lounging more than sitting, and neither of you are particularly interested in the game. Arahad looks for a while. He drums his fingers on the table and then makes a move. And then lets out this laborious sort of sigh.
Arahel will lean up onto the table and stare down at the board as this move is made and this sigh is let out. It would look as if he was interested in the game, but he's just shifting position in discomfort. And he'll just and then tap on the board for a moment, considering an option, and then I'll move a piece as well, and look up to try to gauge the reaction of this other person.
Yeah, he'll look down at the board, with bright blue eyes, searching for a moment, and then look up at you with this expression. You play chess a lot because there's so little to do in this city if you're not out. Beyond it, you have like explored every wine sink. You've explored every theater, every museum that there is in this place. And though you are freer than most citizens, it seems, you also are encouraged to stay in the upper levels of the city. And so you end up playing a lot of chess with Arahad and your other friends. He like looks down at the board for a while and like moves another piece.
Quite the life of luxury, isn't it? So much to do. Like, say sarcastically, tapping at the board again. Take another piece and move it.
Yeah, like a servant will come in and refill the wine and like place fresh grapes upon the table. As like a harpist sort of lazily strums. One of your other friends like lazily strums at a harp in the corner. There's a number of you here, sort of young members of your particular class and race, the half-elves who ostensibly rule the Reunited Kingdom. You're all sort of related. Everyone's someone's second or third cousin, as there are only a few hundred of you in the entire world. And Arahad like will make another move and then realize he's defeated and will like look up to you and shrug again.
Yeah, Erhel was just like let out a sigh. Like he doesn't want to play again, but what is he gonna do? Just sit here and do nothing? So he'll like kind of go through the process of taking all the pieces back, setting them back in order. Kind of glance out the balcony. You know, stories once said that just a couple hundred years ago that view was covered in lava and ash and darkness. Yet now you just sit here looking out across the open air and I'll like take the a pawn and move it. I would never wish evil upon the world, but some days it seems like it might be more interesting.
I know what you mean. Like taps at the table some more and like takes a sip of the wine. Like looks out in the same view, looking at Mordor in the distance. And then you can hear this like shuffle, and you can see like some of your friends like stand, and you can see that the king has like casually walked into this sort of balcony. He is a distant uncle of yours, as basically is the case with all of these people who are your friends. They're all your family also. The king is, he looks the same age as you. You all look perfect. And that sort of unearthly grace that only comes from elf blood. And he like walks and everyone sort of stands and bows or kneels. And he like does this sort of gesture like, no, it's not necessary. It's not necessary. And he'll move and sort of float into a chair between you and Arahad. And he'll look down at the game in progress and then like look to you to move.
Welcome, my king. Kind of tap at the board, casually. Take another piece, move it, and then kind of like glance up at Arahad and then over at the king.
Yeah, he's obviously like nervous. He doesn't really know what to do, and he's like looking at the chess set now and not sure what move to make under the watchful gaze of the king. Though he looks the same age as you, he's nearly 300. And he like looks between the two of you and leans on one elbow and helps himself to a grape, which he like flicks into the air and like catches in his mouth with unerring accuracy. Arahel, you have an interest in our ancestry. Is that right?
Yes, the Elven people have long been an interest of mine. Their departure has left quite an impact, and their remembrance, I fear, might not be held in the minds of men as much as it should.
I couldn't agree more. Have you been to the Woodland Realm?
He'll kind of like frown at that and kind of look out at the balcony. Sadly, most of my time is spent here in the city running the affairs. I've not been able to get out as much as I would like.
We shall have to remedy that, hey? And he'll like put a hand on your shoulder, sort of camaraderie, like, I'm having a meeting tomorrow at 9. A council. Why don't you come along?
Erhil will kind of like look up at Arahad, with like a hint of a smirk that he hides rather well. But the keen elven eyes would most likely pick up on it regardless. Which is like, hey, something interesting might actually come of this. He'll just look over to the king and nod. It would be an honor, of course, as always, especially if it gets me out from these walls for a moment.
Very good. And like a few moves have gone by in the game, and he'll like look down and move a piece on Arahad's side, causing a checkmate towards you. And then he'll like do a little smile and squeeze your shoulder and head out of the room.
Arahil will look up towards Arahad and say, oh, well, it seems I've been bested. He'll kind of push down the pieces, knock over the king, in signal of defeat. But with a smirk that says, like, yeah, the king helped you win this game, but I've been invited to something interesting. And just kind of shrug.
Arahad will sort of smile and look to you. And there'll be like a couple of moments where he like takes a drink of wine and eats a grape, and then he'll look back and say, again?
Ariel will just kind of sigh, a little bit more perked up this time than the previous games, energized by the recent interaction with the king, and we'll go about setting up the pieces.
So a number of days will pass, or weeks in some cases. Theomar, you would have taken your men and rid Arakor of the orc infestation before it takes root. And you would then begin to make your way from Saragost through Gorgoroth, through Minas Ithil now, no longer Minas Morgul, reclaimed, now a bright shining castle with a palantir, through Ithilien, across Osgiliath, and then into Minas Tirith. No small journey. It's probably one you've made maybe once before. I'm not sure how many times you think Theomar would have been in the White City, the capital of the Reunited Kingdom. But nonetheless, it's a pretty significant journey. Every time you move through Mordor, the further you get from Saragost, which is almost the most easterly point of the Reunited Kingdom, the safer it gets, and the more you're able to sort of ride without looking over your shoulder at every moment. Though I imagine Theomar does so anyway.
Yeah, Theomar's mind is taken from worry and figures and such from his holdfast at Helagast, at the site again of the city. Now he can like see the scope of it as he couldn't as a child. It was like a limitless mountain of ancient and elegant artifice. And now he sees it for what it is, a great fortress and bastion that cannot fall. And he marvels under those thoughts of food for the rest of the winter and reinforcements from Saragost, netting up the Batcave just flee from him. And he probably notices that one of his men staring at him with his mouth agape as he rides, and kind of shakes it and gives the man a look such that he finds somewhere else to gaze. And inside wonders if such a thing can be built in the East.
I think that you would notice most of all how safe it is here, that once you cross the Anduin, there are unprotected farmsteads everywhere that you look, and there's just rolling hills and farms everywhere, and no walls, nothing like that.
It would be death at home, but here there's no fear. It's probably the twin cons. There's a lack of fear and the lack of defenses. They go hand in hand as far as he's concerned. If you're concerned about something, you defend it. And this is this freedom that they enjoy almost makes him sadden for his own people that languish so, but he banishes such thoughts as they come.
Grimthane, you would see a similar thing, although from you maybe it's the plenty and the splendor of it all. You've been to Edoras, certainly in the Golden Hall of Mediceld, and while it's impressive, it is, you could fit Edoras into Minas Tirith 100, 200 times. This city is colossal. It is a mountain, and all white, all shining. These beautiful canals that run down all over the city into the Pelennor fields. And you would see, as I say, opulence everywhere that you look. And as you enter into the city itself, the casual way in which people sort of walk, and the sort of shouting and the noise of it all and how close it all is, I think would be a bit of a shock for Grimthane.
Yeah, the abundance of people and the bustling nature of the city as he enters it is one of the things that strikes him most, and is the most jarring to him. I think his life has been lived fields and open plains of Rohan, and even the muster of the Aored, that's not enclosed behind walls like this is, and this is every day for these people. This is what the thoughts that are going through his head. How can people live like this? Is what he really wonders. It's certainly not, and he has maybe even a tinge of pity and a bit of disdain for them, I suppose, in terms of he pities the fact that on the open fields and that they live in such a way like cattle, almost. But he's also grimaces at the opulence.
You can hear all these different languages being spoken, and you can see men from every part of the Reunited Kingdom in the market squares. Sallow-skinned men from Umbar. You can see turban-wearing Haradrim even here, selling spices. You can see men of Arnor. You can see Dalemen, Vigilmen, everywhere, everyone in these market squares shouting. And you can see very few men of Rohan. And I think you would be interesting to many of the people who are in the city. They wouldn't often see a rider of the mark, and so certainly children would see and point, and then they would pretend to ride horses next to you, or act like knights and things like that, and have some play fights as you ride up through the city. You'll be checked at every single gate, of which there are too many for your experience to understand. Every 100 feet, there's a gate of some kind, and then you have to go up all these levels to get to the place where you're supposed to go, which is the very highest hall. And so it takes a great deal of effort and a great deal of time to make your way up through all those levels. But eventually you do arrive at the very top of Minas Tirith.
And that struck him when the Great White City came into view as he crested a hill just earlier when he was arriving. That awe is now within him tenfold as he sees outward from atop the White City at height and sees over the fields of Pelennor. Appreciates that view and the vastness, and again he takes a moment to takes a breath of a bit of relief now that he sort of feels less claustrophobic, and he's back up here and it feels a bit more open again, what he's used to. And he pulls out his letter again and rereads the instructions and the destination, and looks about to try and find the path to the meeting place.
And so between all of you, it takes some time, but you do eventually all find yourself at the doors to the throne room, and you are brought inside. This pale marble throne room with these black columns that stretch from the enormous door all the way to the end of the room where the huge marble throne is. Between each sort of graceful arch of the throne room, there's a black marble statue of a king from Elendil all the way to Elisar II, his son Eldarion, his son Eldarthor, an incomplete bust of the current king, Eldaramir. He's standing there posing for this bust to be made. And he is one of the, I can't even say this word, one of the half-elves who rule the Reunited Kingdom, the alliance that was sworn a long time ago, that elves would interbreed with men to create a race of rulers. This man, this elf, this hybrid of the two is every part the best parts of both. He has a very noble bearing about him, and though he stands posing to become a statue, there's no sort of arrogance in that stance. Standing next to him is like a scribe who's reading him all of this stuff, all of these these bits of information, and he's sort of like nodding imperceptibly. He takes it all in. And you're all led up past all these statues of various kings to this sort of table that's been set up at the base of the throne. This long white wood table with these thick chairs that you can sit in. There are like places marked for each of you. And once he sees that you arrive, the king will sort of do a polite apology to the sculptor and move his way to the table where he will sit at one end. Well, welcome all of you. And he'll spread his arms sort of wide. You are here for a single purpose. There are a great many people within the Reunited Kingdom, and it's essential to the continued success of our great realm that we understand each other and that we work together. Now, some of you, all of you, believe that we are here to discuss the safety of borders, and that is in some ways true. Not entirely. There's a task for which you have been selected. You'll have to forgive the deception, but we must be careful in what we say in our letters. We never know who might read them, who might pick them up. Wine, he'll say, gesturing for a servant to come over, and he'll pour wine for all of you as you sit at this table. He'll nod.
Ivoriel kind of just takes a sip to steady her nerves. She, I don't think, has ever met the king, certainly not in such a small group, and she's a bit unnerved by it.
He would smile, sort of politely and calmingly as well. He has a very sort of... he's not very standoffish for a king, which you would imagine he would be. My cousin, Remenrahil, he speaks highly of you, Theomar. He says that you have zeal, and we should see the orc eradicated from this world. I can imagine that you are none too happy to be taken away from your people and your enemies, but I have need of you.
He nods and stonily says, I'm happy to do the bidding of your highness, even if it should keep me from my vigil. And he'll give a slow nod at that.
But we are glad to have you. My cousin, as I say, Remenrahil, he hears reports. We hear reports also in Umbar of a figure in the east. And we know that every day the Vigilmen keep the tide of the orc at bay, but there are whispers from traders in Umbar of some kind of leader arising. They hear of him in Harad and in Rune. The Palantiri have not helped us see who this figure might be, and we cannot sit and wait while forces gather to him. The mistakes of my ancestors will not be my own, and so I have called you. He'll like look around the table, and this is often something that he has to deal with when you're a king. No one speaks freely. Greenwood the Great, once the seat of the Woodland King and of the great fortress of Dol Guldur, now it is the greatest forest in the world. Every day ships sail up and down the Anduin and past this great wood from here to Dale. Dale's laws are strict on the rule that no man may enter those woods, and I have cautioned our own traders from doing the same. Yet it seems that not all is well in the great green wood. Rumors suggest... He stops for a second to take a drink of wine. That there are fires in the south of the wood, and that the dread fortress is being rebuilt. I'm sure you agree this cannot be allowed. I would send you to investigate and see what you can discover there.
If these people have begun to tear down the forests, which they know that they should not be interfering with, I would be glad to go investigate, at the very least, see what's happening. This cannot be allowed to continue.
In ages past, the kings of the woodland realm would ensure that no evil took root there. And yet now there are no elves in Mirkwood. And he says Mirkwood like it's a sort of like it's crawled into his mouth and he didn't want to say it. He wanted to say Greenwood. But that name sticks somehow.
The legacy of the elves cannot be allowed to be tarnished. It's a preservation that must be kept sacred.
On this we are agreed, and that is why I have asked you to come, Arahil. Not only your interest in our ancestors, our shared ancestors, but also your skills as an investigator. In Theomar, as I have said, your zeal and courage are beyond reproach. You know the enemy well in all of its forms, which is why I have asked for you. And Grimthane, I've received reports that you are a worthy representative of your people, and in all things, we of the Reunited Kingdom seek unity. It will do us all good to have a rider of the mark among you. And he'll look at you, Grimthane, and there'll be this sort of curl at the edge of his lip of a smile before he'll turn to look to Ivoriel. Ivoriel, your knowledge of history and specifically of the Greenwood, I think, far exceeds anyone else's here. And he'll give you a look as well that implies he knows more about that than he's saying.
You honor me, Aran Malatiada. I believe it was in the Greenwood where Bregadon was my grandfather, where he and the others were searching.
He'll nod. Indeed. And never returned.
No. It is a great sorrow to many of us.
Indeed, and I feel it keenly. And so, you will go, the four of you, to Greenwood the Great, and to see what is happening there. If there are fires of industry around Dol Guldur, we must put a stop to them before anything happens. We cannot let the enemy find any weakness. We cannot let them take root in any part of this Middle Earth beyond where they already teem. If you have questions, now is the time.
What does this have to do with the figure in the east, Aran Malatialda? I do not understand.
And with the enemies of whom we already know, Theomar will add.
I understand that must be hard for you, Theomar, to leave an enemy that is real and visible for one that we suspect that is why we value you Vigilmen so heavily, that you are constantly doing what needs to be done, and you are every day on the border with our enemy. But the Orc is disorganized, leaderless. They are tribes. They are petty warlords at most. No threat to this kingdom.
As you say, sire.
But this talk of a leader, of something, they don't speak of some orc. They don't speak of some Eastron prince. It's something else. I can feel it.
And you suspect this leader in Umbar connected to the fires of Dol Guldur?
The rumors come from Umbar. The leader himself, we have no idea where he might be. But Umbar is most connected with those who were once our enemies, those who live far in the east, the Haradrim, the Variags of Khand, the Easterlings.
Do you have any allies near the Great Greenwood that you would have us meet with or contact? We are to drive out this force. Maybe more than 4 of us may be needed. If there is anybody we may speak with in that area that might assist us, it would be useful.
Of course, I wouldn't expect you to do that alone. He'll take a piece of paper from the table, and he'll begin writing in this beautiful Sindarin script, like a letter. My writ that you can use to, he'll do a smile again. The king's writ is a valuable thing. You'll be able to acquire men, find places to stay, things of that nature. That we have no fortresses north of Gondor. We have no men. But Dale is there, and they have a great many cities in the north. And they are our allies.
The word of the King of the United Realms is a powerful thing indeed. We are gracious for your gift to us in this matter.
If there is evil in this wood, it will affect Dale worse than it will affect us, at least in the short term. But they are he looks away for a second and thinks, Dalemen are peerless merchants. I'm not so sure how much they investigate the Great Green Wood. And so it falls on us, always the keepers of peace, to ensure that peace is kept.
All these words are racing through Grimthane's mind, and all of the reasons as to why he's been summoned here and what their purpose is for this task from the king. And he can't help but run through his head. Yes, Dale may need our help because they're right near the Greenwood, and if some evil is taking them first, but Rohan are mostly self-sufficient. They have less need than most of the regions for the crafts and the goods from Dale. But he quells that thought, noting the presence that he's in and the opportunity he has here. Illustrious company, and the bust, the sculpture in progress of the king and the man in flesh himself, or the half elf in flesh. Speaking of real enemies, as he looks to Theomar and abandoning the fight against them, our lands are raided by the Dunlendings, but the riders of Rohan staying behind can keep that enemy at bay. And I will agree to be a representative for the Aered on this task, Your Majesty, as he raises his cup and takes a drink of the wine.
You can see this like flicker of maybe just for a second annoyance on the king's face when you say that you agree, as if it was a question, as if the king had asked you to do this, when realistically he is the king of the Reunited Kingdom and he is telling you what to do. But it's all kind of like coated behind this like veil of politeness, and he has asked all of you to be here, and so he'll like smile at that. I'm glad to hear it. It's always good when our friends from Rohan assist in every way possible in the protection of the Reunited Kingdom. Are there any more questions about your mission?
Forgive me, Your Majesty, but if there are rumors in the south and in the east, why do we go north?
Dol Guldur is a place of power, ancient and terrible. It was one of the greatest fortresses of the Dark Lord in elder days. And in those days, the most dangerous signs was the rebuilding of these old places, the retaking of these old places by the enemy. And so when I hear rumors that someone is rebuilding Dol Guldur, that troubles me more than persistent raids by orcs or talk in the bazaars of Umbar.
I believe I understand. I will do what I can.
I'm certain that you will succeed, Ivoriel, he'll say with a smile. You guys would all know that Umbar is like the southern capital of Gondor, of the Reunited Kingdom. It was for a long time like a city of pirates and corsairs who were like loyal to Sauron. But after the fall of Sauron, the city was retaken. A long time ago, it was a Numenorian city. And so it's been retaken, and now it's like this bustling metropolis with these great markets and like great schools and libraries and things like that. But it's like the most cosmopolitan place in Middle-earth, where you have lots of people from the east who don't generally mix with people from the west, but they do mix in Umbar. And so that's where the rumors are coming from a lot of the time, because that's where the Easterners go to.
Should we take the trade roads then? Go through Rohan.
The journey you take is entirely your decision. I trust that you will be able to discover the swiftest and safest route to get there.
Of course, we will not bore you with the logistics of our journey. We will be more than capable of handling that ourselves. Kind of like give a side-eyed glance towards the Voriel.
Yeah, she kind of flushes a little pink.
Yeah, he doesn't make a big deal out of it. He sort of like smiles, and he can like tell if Oriel is embarrassed a little bit, but he won't like draw attention to it. He'll like take another sip of his wine and look between all of you. You're welcome to stay a day, 2, or even a week here in Minas Tirith. I will have quarters arranged for you, and when you're ready, you can embark upon your journey.
We will leave this day, sire, if we have your leave, if it is as you say.
Whenever you are ready, that is when you shall go, he'll say with a smile. Though you think he's certain, or he was certain, that you would say that, though nonetheless offered you the chance to stay for longer.
Then Theomar will rise, wine untouched, and give a deep, gracious bow to the king, and then wait for like some gesture or appropriate amount of time before turning to leave.
Well, if there's nothing else, the king will like push out his chair and stand. I have a great deal of posing to do, he'll say, and he'll like look at the sort of unfinished statue and smile between the lot of you. I wish you luck and a swift journey.
I do have one question, please.
Of course.
Majesty. Would you wish us to send word back during our travels of what we find, or bring it to you ourselves? You said we must be careful what we write.
I'm certain that you can find a way to send me the information I need without giving too much away. I'm
Of
sure
course.
you and your he like does this sort of like hand wave thing. Scholars have codes and ciphers and such.
Yes, of course, Your Majesty.
Very good.
For a split second, Erhel goes to stand up casually to turn away, behaving how he normally does in the presence of his kin. But then remembering that the other foreigners are here, he'll give a deep, formal bow and say, "In honor as always, my king," before turning away to head back towards the doors.
Seeing Arahel perform such a deep bow, Grimthane would replicate that, even though it's something he's not necessarily used to, bowing so deeply, and just says, "My king," as he turns to leave, and as he steps out of the grand throne room, just trying to reconcile in his mind just the insane opulence of this king standing here for hours on end posing for a sculpture, when there's such work to be done.
The four of you can like pass out onto the balcony and the sort of jutting park that extends from the royal chamber out towards the white tree and over Minas Tirith. You can take a few moments there to like look at the insane view that you'll probably never get to see again before we make ready for our journey. But first, we'll have a quick break and have a smoke and a coffee and all the rest. We'll be back in like 5 minutes. All right, I'm back. Thanks all for watching. Hope you're doing well.
I'm back too.
All right, love that king.
He's great, yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's so good. He's like a little bit standoffish, but also you kind of want to like him.
I just figure like if you have like both Aragorn's blood in you and Arwen's, and you are 300 years old, I just feel like you've got everything down. You know, like
Yeah, like you just the amount of like patience that you would like have developed by then. And like
Mhm.
knowing that you still have like 600 years to like do whatever you need to do.
Yep.
An hour-long meeting is like 10 seconds in
Yeah, for
in
sure.
elven life.
Okay, I think we're all back, are we? Looks like it.
Yep.
Yeah, so you've got some time to spend in Minas Tirith as you see fit. You can probably like find a where you'd be given quarters in which you can like plan your journey to discuss like how you're going to get from here to Mirkwood. It's a long way. Some 500 miles it looks like thereabouts, but there are many ways to get there.
The trade roads are safe. A route would take us past Edoras. Through your home, Grimthane.
I'm not so familiar with these lands as further east, but could we not sail up the river north to the foot of the Greenwood?
So you could sail as far as the Falls of Raros, but then you'd have to like get out and walk and potentially find another boat on the other side of the hills because there's a huge waterfall there. Because you'd be going upriver.
Could we disembark south of the Falls of Rauros and then ride hard west into Rohan and then back up, skirting the mountains to the river to find another boat that will take us up past the Fork of Undeep? I would ask that to Grimthane, I guess, because he's native to that region.
A real quick question while we're planning our route. I don't know if I missed it or if it wasn't said. Whereabouts in Mirkwood is this supposedly happening?
Dol Guldur, which is like the very southern sort of chunk of Mirkwood.
Oh, yep, there I see it. Okay. Yeah, Airhill would probably agree then. Guess perhaps the sea would be the most expedient way to get there. We may have to work around another route, but it would certainly get us close.
With the King's Writ, we could get passage enough for horses too. With Grimthane to lead us, make short work of passing through the plains of Rohan here, back north of the falls. The trade road would be safer, and some going of this path harder. But I sense time is of the essence.
Yes, if the legacy of the elves is to be tarnished by these people, then the sooner we can put an end to it, the better, especially if they prove to be dangerous in other ways.
And taking this road will familiarise us with it should we need to take it swiftly back south and carry word to His Majesty. spoke of raids, Grimthane, and troubles for the people of the Mark. Tell me, would this proposed path bring us close to anything like that? Would our passage be peaceful?
Have we lost Keel?
Must have.
Yep. Well, he would tell you that the Dunlendings are like on the western side of Rohan mostly, and you'd be on the eastern side. So it would be
Peaceful.
unusual for them to be that far east, near impossible. Generally speaking, like the western side of the Anduin is fairly safe, particularly around Rohan and Gondor, which is where you'll be doing the bulk of your sailing. Yeah, so that's what you'd know, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And Ivoriel, these brown lands, what do you know of them? Will they give us any worry on our passage south of Dol Guldur?
That borders up to Rohan's land, right? They shouldn't give us any trouble, correct, Lloyd?
Yeah, so they the opposite side, the eastern side of the Anduin to Rohan is the Brownlands, and it's like historically, well now, sort of like a devastated sort of land. Nobody lives there. It's just like this open, barren sort of like steppe, I guess.
So we'd need to get supplies before or as we disembark to cut across there to the forest.
Yeah, you'd think so.
Mm-hmm.
We can stop in Rohan after we make it around the falls. We should be able to gather resources there before making our way across the Barrens.
Presuming we find nothing, we can come back as need be. But should there prove and to be trouble there, the king's own writs to gather allies, what allies around Dol Guldur would that be? Would that be the Dale? The Dale
I
folk?
believe said the Dale people there.
Yeah, that's Dale lands.
Just
think-
them.
When you're at Dol
they
Guldur,
were-
you're about equidistant from Minas Tirith and the actual city of Dale. Like Dale's the very, very north where Erebor
I
is.
see.
That's where Dale is. But like all around the north of Mirkwood and even down as far south as the Gladden River, that's all sort of Dale's land, although they don't have any business in the actual forest.
Okay. So we'd have to then go north a journey quite a ways to gather allies there to repel a hypothetical threat from Dol Guldur. And
Yeah,
maybe
you would
even
think so.
Rivendell too if it's closer.
Yep. I guess you would know that there are still Bjornings living around the Carrock, although like they don't owe any allegiance to the king, but they're like goodly people.
Mm-hmm. Theomar would trace these lines on presumably like a map provided for us or one that we can requisition. And say, I would favour this than the trade road to Voriel, but if you still think safety as of the utmost, then I'll happily take whichever path you learned folk dictate.
The river is quite safe for much of the journey. We would fare no better on the roads for the latter part, I think.
Perhaps the distractions amongst other travelers, especially given kind of like look at the curious gathering of half elf and like all these lords. Perhaps it would be wiser to stay to the rivers as best we can, where there would be less people to be of need of us.
You natives of this city, tell me by this afternoon, can we find passage on a ship north and supplies? And there's like a twinge of urgency in his voice, which I'm sure you keen folk would know.
Yeah, Arahel will just kind of like look over. I imagine we're still in like the upper district. I'm guessing.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
he'll kind of like look over to one of the men servants and just kind of like snap a finger at him, and like wave him over.
Yeah, he'll come over quickly.
I think you're muted if you're talking, Jeff.
Will be
Ooh.
supplies and passage on the ship. Can you guys hear me?
Entirely robot-y. We are playing.
I think you came good at the end.
Yeah, just at the end. Try it again, Jeff.
Hello? Better? Can you
Yep.
guys hear me now? Yeah, so he would just like look over to the servant, and just say, "We're leaving north towards Mirkwood on orders from the king. We'll need a passage on a ship heading north, and a full set of supplies." I'll just kind of give a nod.
Yeah, he'll nod and he'll like look for a moment and sort of like do some calculating in his head. You'll have to sail from Osgiliath, sir. But I can send ahead and have it organized.
Please.
As you say. And he'll like bow and make his way away.
Erhel will just kind of give a gesture towards Theomar as the work is done.
And horses too, Theomar will call.
The guy's like halfway at the door and he'll like stop and turn and like nod sort of quickly and then bow again and then leave.
Do you not have a horse of your own, my lord?
A nag, the one most crooked-footed. Every horse for war is needed in Heligar.
Mm. Well, let us hope that they bring us some finer specimens.
What fineness could this city not produce?
Indeed, the wealth here and the opulence is palpable, but I think there is at least one produce that the Aered yet best this land, and that is horses. Hopefully, we have some fine Rohirric steeds.
I think you'd struggle to find even like the most staunch Gondorian sort of supremacist who would argue that their horses are better than those of Rohan. I think that's like well known even now that there's no better horses in all the world.
Well, if our passage is to leave from Osgiliath, we should be on our journeys towards there sooner rather than later. At least if we hope to leave today.
Let us go then. Lead the way.
I will gather a few things and meet you at the lowest gate. There are some books I would bring. Several things as well. I had not thought to travel today, but I will not delay us.
The journey will be long. It's best you make sure you are prepared. Do what you must, I say.
Ivoriel looks from you to Theomar, who seems to want to leave 10 minutes ago, and just nods somewhat nervously. Yes, I will be swift, but also do what I must.
preparation is everything. Be swift about it, but leave no requirements behind.
And so you start to get ready, gathering the things that you need. You can make your way. It's a 20-mile journey from Minas Tirith to Osgiliath. Although a journey is like a very sort of generous thing to say about it. It's really just like a leisurely stroll through like several parks and like beautiful farmlands, vineyards, things like that. The land between Osgiliath and Minas Tirith has become a sort of highway with like beautiful trees on either side of it. This like raised stone road that you can ride along, wide enough for 4 wagons at a time. And you can like easily make your way down it. There are like rest stops frequently. Yeah, it's a pleasant journey. You'll see like many sort of carts moving either direction, bringing things from Osgiliath mostly to Minas Tirith. Since Minas Tirith doesn't make much, it's just a place, a very important place. But as far as what it creates, I think you would notice, particularly Thaimar and Grimthane, that like you didn't see too many craftsmen in Minas Tirith. Like there's lots of like jewelry makers and like clothiers and things like that, but very few people who like make anything. Yeah, it creates royalty, is right. It's the place of rulership more than a living, breathing city. But as you like approach Osgiliath in the distance, ruined many times, but now rebuilt, you can see it in these like soaring sort of spires in the distance. This is the city of the stars. Much bigger than Minas Tirith. It stretches across the entire Anduin, and there are 3 great bridges that cross it. Bridges that seem too long to be built by men, or to be built in this age, maybe. You can make your way through like the tight sort of city itself down towards the docks, and again you'll see notably very few Rohirrim here, and again children will like point like in wonder at like the huge horse that you have, Grimthane, and then also like the way that you're dressed and that you have like this long hair and this beard and that you wear green, all these sort of things that like are unusual here in this city, and like kids will like stare in amazement and like ride along next to you and things like that on pretend horses as you make your way through the city. You'll be hawked at by countless merchants trying to sell you this, that, and the other. Bustling through these crowds on your horse is pretty difficult, but you get there eventually down to the docks. I'm not sure how often Grimthane would have seen the Anduin itself. Certainly not here, with these massive bridges that stretch all the way across it, and fleets of ships on either side of the river, in the great docks and wharfs here, and the constant like noise of seagulls and of people shouting, just this throng of people everywhere that you look. There are hundreds of people selling, buying, drinking, singing everywhere. It's probably pretty overwhelming for Thaimar and Grimthane to see this many people crammed into such a small space.
It is, and Grimthane longs for the journey up the river to commence, so that he can return to some more quiet times. And as you say, he has seen the Anduin River, but in the eastern and northeastern sections of Rohan, never anything like this, with the docks and all of the people and the seagulls and the smell of bird shit and fish and everything like that. And as he's getting overwhelmed by this, he sort of gets a bit lightheaded and has a moment of clarity where he realizes that he's seen this huge city with the 3 enormous bridges crossing the river with these docks. He's seen this in his dreams, and for a moment his breath catches in his throat, and if they're walking along or they're riding along, maybe he stops quite abruptly. for a moment.
Grimthane, what is it? Lag behind in this bustle. You'll be lost too early.
The words make their way through the din in his mind, and he returns to the lucidity. Yes. No, it's nothing. It's just not used to all of these people, all this noise, unless it's in the din of battle. And he ushers his horse, Garmund, along again.
Few of the great armies of history can stand up to the crowds of Osgiliath. Come on, let's get on with it. And even Arahel would look probably visibly uncomfortable at being here. He's from Gondor and has grown up, but he spent most of his time in the upper districts of Minas Tirith, much quieter, less crowded, where people are at his beck and call, and the crowds are clearly even annoying to him, having been around this place before.
Yeah, like while kids kind of point at Grimthane and sort of like, ooh, look, like one of those like legendary Rohirrim, like that's interesting. Like they point at you like they can't believe that you're real. Because I guess they would hear stories about your people and that they exist and that they like the king is one of them and all this sort of stuff. But I don't think like anyone in Osgiliath, or certainly not children, would have seen any of your people. And so like they're like staring, and like some of the kids just like stop and like point, sort of like open jawed, like gawping. And you see like one of the kids turn to the other and like pulls at his ears, like he's like maybe 3 years old, and he's like looking at the other kid, like trying to figure out like what's going on there, as they like stare in amazement.
Theomar, it seems we are in the company of a spectacle, a pair of them. The children are enamored.
It is a joy to see children so free of worry and so full of wonder.
What is it like in Saragost? You are a man of the vigil, yes?
I am, though not at this moment. But it's cold. The air is still, though cleaner here. Though cleaner there. And the people cling to a living in the crags and rocks, pore over the bones of the fallen of ages past to find what riches they can to survive on. The children, you ask, well, they are hardy, and they live to survive. They are skilled and wary, and must be tough, for they live up. They live growing up, fighting tooth and nail against the orc, and against the land sometimes, that they might thrive.
When Theomar mentions the orc, Grimthane sort of turns his head a bit in interest, almost being surprised, I suppose, that there's such a prevalent threat still over in the east, and he begins to muse on the fact that perhaps he has been a bit more sheltered than he would have been led to believe as to the way of the world.
But they laugh to their grandfather's jokes and listen sometimes to their mothers, probably as much as any children across the realms. Though, ashamed to say, in your presence, I know little of the realms outside of Saragost and Heligar. where my vigil keeps me. See, you were well learned. You were as well travelled, Ivoriel.
I have been a few places, but not many, all within the Reunited Kingdom and all within a few days of Minas Tirith. I would like to see more.
And you, Erahel, I know well that your folk are long-lived in such span. Have you travelled afar from the White City?
Sadly, our duty as, and like kind of like frowns as he says rulers, not wanting to like come off the wrong way. Sadly, our duty keeps us quite busy in the city. They prefer us to stay in the upper levels. I do not get out as much as I would like, despite my lifespan.
And what do you do all day?
Manage logistics, random business of the city, make sure that the disputes are settled, make sure that the things are done as they need to be done, make sure that people are satisfied and that business is seen to, follow the orders of the king, of the people above, tend to the needs of the people below. Things like that. It's and he's like he doesn't know what to say. Like he's clearly like all these people have their great duties as warriors and like keepers of the dangerous borders and of the horselands, and he's lived this like comfortable life, and it's clear that like talking about it is making him a little uncomfortable.
And against his initial instinct, Grimthane doesn't make a snide remark, and instead he says, well, looks that this may be your first adventure beyond the borders of the capital.
Not my first, but certainly the most important and the furthest. I'm glad to see the former lands of my people, though. It will be a great honor to be able to witness it firsthand.
Indeed, the greenwood will be surely a marvel, especially compared to that of Fangorn, which lies upon my doorstep in Rohan.
Arahel, your people are quite long-lived. Yes. And she like kind of flushes a little at the impertinence of the question she was about to ask and thinks better of it. It will be good, I'm sure, for you to travel. A change of scenery.
I'll kind of give a quizzical look at the stumbling and the clear like change of direction. But he won't press it for the time being and just kind of nod cautiously. Yes, for all its a cage made of gold is still a cage, and sometimes that's what the city feels like. It'll be good to get out.
And so you while away the hours sort of chatting as you make your way along this road and then through Osgiliath until you finally come to the docks. Ship has been prepared in the way that only the Ferathalim could like manage at such short notice, like a click of a finger and an order given, like a ship is ready. And so you can like ride right onto the ship. The horses taken care of by servants, by sailors, and you can then quickly like make your way onto the deck to somewhere comfortable and begin sailing. The horses, particularly yours, Grimthane, are like uncomfortable at the thought of like riding. It's not a good place for a horse to be. Thought of sailing, sorry. A horse like yours, which is so used to like the open plains and like getting as much exercise as it wants and like running free, being crammed into this box, does not sit well with your steed. And he basically tells you as much with like pawing at the ground and like even snapping at you.
He quietly comforts her, speaking in Rohirric. It's maybe singing a gentle, calming song to her, as he often does at the start of a new journey.
Yeah, she'll eventually calm down, but it takes some time, and you can carry on. Make your way upstairs after some time, and you'll find you're underway already, sailing up the river, Anduin. Under one of the huge bridges of Osgiliath, you can like see the scale of it, which is just like baffling. You could sail a ship, like a proper huge ship, with massive masts and things like that underneath this bridge, built in ancient times and now repaired. And you'll sail north from here for the best part of a day before you come to Caer Andros, which is the ship of the long foam, the island just to the north of Osgiliath. You'll like pass it on your right, and you can see the great fortress that was built there under Eldarion, son of Elisar II, which is Aragorn. It used to be like an old garrison on this island in the Third Age, but after the War of the Ring and the sort of peace that came thereafter, this island has been built into a massive castle, a enormous holdfast that's been like built here now to protect and ensure that nothing that is not welcome makes its way from the eastern side of the Anduin to the western. And you'll see like soldiers atop the walls, great like siege engines and machines there, and a great many like ships in the docks all around it. Looks like a lot of the might of this part of the Reunited Kingdom sits at Caer Andros. You sail up the Anduin for days against this slow-moving current until you finally come inside of the Argonath, the Falls of Raros. These two great statues, hundreds of feet tall, in the likeness of the sons of Elendil, Isildur and Anarion, and they present their hands sort of forward. This is the extent, or was the extent, of Gondor a long time ago. And even today, this is as far as the Reunited Kingdom goes. It goes a lot further west and east, but northwards, this is as far as the kingdom will go. And as you like approach these falls, the ship that you're in will like find a dock at a village here. And the sort of friendly captain who you would have gotten to know over the past few days would just inform you that they cannot sail up the waterfall with a sort of cheeky grin, but then realize who he's talking to, and then sort of more politely say, "This is as far as I can take you, my lords, and my lady."
Yeah, Arahel will, with like a deadly serious expression, like kind of frown and like look. We came from the king. You can't even try. And then, like after a short moment of sternness, he'll break and smile, like kind of like letting him know that he can be casual. Just, of course, we appreciate your passage. It's much appreciated.
He'll sort of smile nervously, like he's not sure if he's really allowed to be casual, and he'll like nod. And so you can disembark here, like in the shadow of the Argonath. These like two massive statues, built many hundreds of years ago. Yeah, and it's up to you.
Grimthane.
Go
Oh, you go.
Just to say, Arahel will kind of like look up at the statues for a moment, kind of caught in thought for a moment. Say, kind of look to the others. They say that these statues were built in the shape of the sons of Elendil, the first men to come over from the seas that settled these lands, built in their image, and they have stood strong still to this day. It's quite a curious legacy man has made here. Just kind of like wander off in thought.
Theomar resists the urge to think that it's an omen. These out-faced palms, like almost bidding to stop, or they could go back the other way. But he cannot deny like the marvel of them, and he wonders at like the heroism of those first men. Then turns to Grimthane and says, "Galmud rankles from their imprisonment on the ship. Set them free and guide us through these plains. Let us put the wind in our hair."
Aye. So these lands are foreign to me and Garmund alike, he says as he lets her wander free and stretch her legs and maybe do a bit of a trot around at the bank of the river, go in and get a drink perhaps. If we continue northward and follow the river for the moment, Garmund and I will be happy to lead the way until a fork in the road is met.
You can head off on your horses then from the falls of Rauros and the Argonath up sort of steep hills through the hills past like Amon Hen and like some of the watch posts here and down into East Emnet and into Rohan proper. This sort of, I suppose, a strange sight for many of you. It's like endless rolling sort of landscape of hills, sort of sparse trees and little copses of trees here and there. But overall, just this massive sort of rolling set of hills and plains. The horses seem to love it and they're pleased to be here. And you can make excellent time here. This is a land for horses. As you like ride down from the hills and into East Emnet, you can see like several rohirric like farmsteads and outposts and things like that along the way. Though in this part of Rohan, I think this is not where you're from, Grimthane. I imagine that you're from like West Rohan, which is where the Dunlendings are.
Definitely.
Yeah, and so this part of Rohan, I guess, would have a different feel as well. It's a little bit more prosperous than the part that you're from, since it's got such proximity to the capital. As you like ride, you'll see like fortified towns and things like that, and like nice big houses and like rich farmsteads, horse farms, horse studs, I guess you should call them, and all sorts of like comparative wealth as compared to what you're used to as you ride through Rohan.
And it's not been overly long since he left his home in the west of Rohan to ride east and then sailing upwards. Matter of what, a week or two at most, but he's glad for the return to a more familiar fields and landscape, and he can't help but think that this is right. This is the way that. This is the height of opulence that men should really have, is what he kind of thinks. This suits him much better as they ride over the fields. His braided hair.
Not a statue in sight, you know. No like marble roads, nor like glorious statues. Just like people living their simple lives as best they can. You can stop happily in like a farmstead, and they'll put you up for the evening, or you can like find a bigger village where like the local sort of thane will put you up without question. With the King's Writ, you'll be like treated like honored guests. Or would you try and make? I mean, I don't know why you, if you want to, but if you wanted to like ride hard through the night and things like that to get there as quickly as possible, you could do that too. I don't want to like assume.
I think it's safe to not ride through the night and to rest when we need, in case we're ever like put in a situation where we need our full strength, and maybe just like pay small amount of pennies or favors to stay with local townsfolk, then flash the King's Writ, so that we're like move as secretly as possible through the lands, just on the off chance that there's some agent of the enemy that might have spies out or the like, just being paranoid, like the way we'd act in the vigil, I imagine. So with that in mind, not traveling pell-mell through the night or anything like that, which could lead us into unnecessary danger.
Yeah, I don't want to exhaust ourselves getting there just to be exhausted when we're there and need to be ready. And yeah, I would say similarly that if possible, I would rather leverage our Rider of Rohan than the King's Writ when it comes to staying with townspeople.
Sure.
Like Nico said, just not to go flashing around anything that might get around.
Yeah, no problem. Like Grimthane is a rider of Rohan, like one of the Rohirrim, and so he's given a welcome everywhere that you go. You can like stay with him like a nice family in the wold one of the evenings, and they'll like cook you the best that they have, which is like a thick stew and some fresh bread, mare's milk, things like that that you can enjoy. And like the little kids will like sing a song for you and all the rest as you like enjoy a nice evening. You can like take off your boots finally and like warm your feet by the fire.
Grimthane would definitely partake and be a bit less stoic than you've seen him so far, singing along happily, not holding back on his drink, and just feeling safe and enjoying his last days that he'll have in his homeland before they move along.
Yeah, kind of everywhere you go and all the families you stay with, you'll see like that the parents will kind of like push their kids to like sing for the elf, to like give their best and like show off everything that they can do, sort of trying to, like when your folks have company over and they bring out the good sort of cutlery, they all kind of like do their best to impress and like to cook the finest meals that they can and things like that. I guess like for Ivoriel and actually for all of you, Bar Grimthane, I imagine this is like a sort of like merriness and a sort of openness that's unusual. Like Gondorian people tend to be a bit more stiff upper lip, I suppose, a little bit more like serious and a bit less forthcoming with like smiles and laughter. But in Rohan, people live simple lives, but they also live relatively joyful ones, and so there's lots of singing and merriment, I suppose.
It's definitely a contrast for Ivoriel. She thinks of her own family dinners, as it were, eaten in silence. Perhaps a passing conversation of some gossip that her mother has heard, some news from Osgiliath, some new trinket brought by a trader. But sitting properly at a table in a slightly darkened room with none of the joy that these simple people seem to have.
I like to think that one evening while we're staying with one such family, two of the sons maybe are racing each other on horses in the fields surrounding their farmstead, as the sun dips low in the sky, and maybe one of them challenges Grimthane to a race, and he bests him, and then the daughter of the household finds the courage perhaps to ask Ivoriel if she would do her the honor of racing against her.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. So,
and Grimthane would happily offer his horse Galmund if Ivoriel would be happy to accept.
Evorial looks uncertainly. I am not a horsewoman, per se.
The girl will
Just
kind of like
something.
look embarrassed, like for having asked.
Oh no. Please. I will do it.
She'll smile, and her little brother, who's like maybe 2 or 3 years old, he's got like his finger in one nostril, and he says, "My dad says elves can ride horses standing up." And the dad gives him this look like, "What are you talking about?"
Arahel will smile at that. This whole time is, I imagine, like for him that it's almost like watching a show. Like these people are so different from the place that he's grown up, and the environment is so different that it's almost like fiction to see a place like this. Uh, but he would just kind of laugh towards this kid. Say, yes, there are many stories about the elves and many great things that they can
Can
do.
you do it? And the dad will like give him a push, like, "Don't interrupt."
I I can't say that I've tried. We don't have quite as much room for riding in the city.
Oh, okay. He'll like sit down in the dirt and like go digging for more gold in his nose. The girl will like get up onto her horse and look to you, Avorio.
Evorial will somewhat tentatively mount Galmond. It's bigger than the one she's been riding. And then she kind of winces as she takes her place in the saddle.
You have the braid of a rider of Rohan.
We shall see if I can keep my seat upon such a steed.
The girl will smile and look to you. Down to the tree, around it, and back. First one back wins.
Very well. Grimthane, will you count?
He looks knowingly to the young girl. 3, 2, go!
Yeah! And she's like immediately off.
There's like a half-second delay of, what just happened? Oh, I should go.
So she's like barreling ahead of you. Brum, 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 brum. And she like is like holding on to the saddle. And she like turn around and wave as she's like riding in the saddle, like a good bit ahead of you. You can make me an animal handling check if you like, to see if you can like pull this back.
Absolutely not. I'm terrible. I rolled a 2.
Okay, yeah. So the girl like effortlessly rides around the tree, and she's like riding back as you're like riding towards, and maybe you're like almost slipping out of the saddle, and she'll see that though and like pull her horse to a stop, and like help you back into the saddle and like make sure that you're okay, and then you can like ride back together. And you can hear her as you like approach back to the group, Grimthane, like talking to Rohirric, in Rohirric to your horse, being like, "That was rude. You shouldn't have done that. Like, she doesn't know how to ride properly, and it's not polite for you to throw this woman."
Evorial is sitting just looking very sheepish.
And after Grimthane finishes gently reprimanding Galmund, who come over to Avoriel and say, "I'm sorry. Sorry for that. I clearly you just need a little more practice. I'm sure Galmund will be glad to have you ride her again."
Perhaps I should stick to a less spirited animal. She is a fine horse, but I'm not certain I match her temperament. And certainly not your skill.
He laughs heartily, probably having already had a drink or two as the evening has started to settle in. Well, certainly not at that, but I think your temperament is something to be admired. As you say, perhaps just at odds with the temperament of Garmund. Nothing against either one of you, of course, as he extends his hand to help you up.
And she'll slide a bit more gracefully than she'd mounted down from the horse, wincing only slightly.
I imagine Thaomar is not involved in the merriment. He probably has never had a night off in his life, and I would reckon while this is happening in like the sort of dusk, that he would be like looking out to the horizon, finding it hard to relax.
Yeah, he's wondering if that boy who took an orcish arrow to the leg had to have it cut off, or if he died. He'll find out when he gets back. And he can't help but like think of people like that when he sees like the happy children and like the content mother and daughter of this family moving about, and something I guess akin to jealousy or something like that creeps in while he like smokes the pipe and realizes that he's actually been like staring at the young boy with the finger in his nose. Kind of like shakes himself free and from his dour thoughts, and like moves up and forces a smile from like the balcony, watching the horse race and the setting sun.
And so it is for most of your journey through Rohan. These like very nice evenings. It's like pleasant sort of like family evenings with the very welcoming and hardy people of Rohan as you make your way north day by day through the wold. Until finally you get to the fork of the Undeep, and you can like cross there at a bridge. Maybe taking a moment to like look back into Rohan, because it is night and day the difference between this side of the Anduin and the other. On the other side, the Brownlands, it's almost as if someone had like taken a scythe to the entire half of Middle Earth. There, the grass is all sort of a mix of like yellow and like brown and rotted. There are like shrubs here and there and dead trees, all sort of like stretching away as far as you can see. You know that if you go from here and keep going east, eventually you'll hit the Sea of Ruin, where apparently there is an empire to rival the Reunited Kingdom, although no one has gone there and returned. No Gondorian loyalist, at least. But your mission will take you across, and so you'll cross that bridge and now be not far from the edge of Mirkwood, maybe another day's ride before you get there. And so you'll ride that day, day and a bit, towards Mirkwood. And you can see it now in the distance as you ride through this like endless wasteland. It looks like there's nothing to look at. It's sort of like the opposite of Rohan. Rohan, although it's very sort of plain and lots of grass, this feels sort of identical. Everywhere that you go, there's like one sort of dead tree that you can see. And there's always like shrubs and things like that, and puddles and like marshes and whatnot. It seems like there's always the same view as you like move through these brown lands, until finally, like as if it's been placed there, you can see the sudden wall of Mirkwood. It just stops and starts. Forests don't do that usually. There's sort of a buildup of shrubs and then sort of sparse trees, but Mirkwood just begins. It's just this perfect sort of line into what has been called a great many names: Greenwood the Great in happier times, and Mirkwood in not so happy times. Now, you know, once you enter Mirkwood, it's not too far to Dol Guldur itself. But you've also heard a lot of things about Mirkwood when it is Mirkwood, that the paths are not straight, that you cannot follow them, and that many a person has been lost inside that wood.
Yeah, I imagine at the sight of Mirkwood, that he wouldn't stop his horse, or at least he wouldn't think to, but he himself would be stopped short, seeing the sudden wall of trees, um, having never really seen anything quite like this in his time in Gondor in the city, and knowing that this is the place of that this place at least used to be the place of elves before they left this world. Um, he would stop for a moment to kind of take in consideration. He's in some ways been waiting to see this for his whole life. So he would kind of stop short of breath and fall silent if he was chatting with anybody as the side of the forest came closer.
There's something about it that seems off when you look at it. Like the trees are just huge, and immediately too. Like there's no small trees leading to big ones; they're all just towering above. Um, and it looks like those trees are thick with webs already here, even on the edge of the forest.
There's a stark difference to what Grimthane was expecting Greenwood the Great to look like. The king, when he tasked them with this mission in that council in the throne room, was referring to it mostly as Greenwood the Great, and so it brings some sorrow to Grimthane's heart seeing the work of the enemy, basically the work of the shadow in the form of these spider webs, when he expected to see something so lush and green. And he sees Arahel's reaction as they reach the edge. Not what you were expecting either.
It has been many years since the elves have left this wood. They were its protectors for a long time, centuries even of time. I'm sure it would have been a beauty to see when they were still here. But alas, men do not have such care for woods as the elves did. It is harder to maintain. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but tread on soil that once was elven, it will be an honor nonetheless.
It will at that. He gives a bit of a gracious nod of his head. Lloyd, how is Galmund reacting as we approach the tree line?
All of the horses would be very nervous. There's something, like I said, like uncanny about Mirkwood in that it just begins. It's immediately a forest. There's no like lead up to it. There's just like this stark line where suddenly you're in a forest or you're not. And so I think like all of the horses would like as they're approaching begin to like sort of paw at the ground and like be nervous of entering.
Yeah, Grimthane would again gently try and calm Galmund with a soothing song in Rohirric.
It is possible that my grandfather came to this wood and came through this very way. I fear what I will find inside.
Your grandfather was a good man. Why does his legacy bring fear to you?
You knew him.
We spoke on certain matters of elvish import. I knew that he came these ways. We discussed it sometimes.
The men who were lost. It is one of the greatest tragedies of that generation. We don't know what happened. They simply did not return.
This strikes a memory in Grimthane. He's heard tales and perhaps songs passed down about a party of people or a company of people who were lost in Mirkwood and never recovered. And if he recalls correctly, some of the members, or at least one, had Rohirric blood in his veins. He keeps that to himself as he waits to hear how the rest of the story unfolds.
The great mysteries of Mirkwood have hidden many things. But the mysteries of those events, let them be a push towards you, a guide. Let that fear drive you forwards, and perhaps towards truth, not away.
As she kind of pats the saddlebags well loaded with books and scrolls. It already has. So far. I will not fear the unknown. I will simply know it.
Good. Erhel will kind of like lean down towards his horse, whisper a couple of words in Elvish to it, and then push it forwards.
And so you go to enter Greenwood the Great, or Mirkwood, and push your horses in through that sudden start, and immediately it's dark. The sun doesn't penetrate through the thick canopy, and it's only a couple of steps in by the time that the darkness descends, and you can feel just this ominous feeling in the air of this place. And all thoughts of Greenwood the Great are banished, and you are certain that you are in Mirkwood. And we're going to take a real quick break there, and we'll finish the session when we come back. All right, call 3 minutes.
I'm like so tense, I don't want to break.
Yeah, sorry. Could no longer hold it.
Let that coffee get into you.
Yeah.
I was
No,
right
that
there
is-
with you, so I'm glad for the break.
Limps. Ah, Lloyd, this is so good. I'm so excited to get into Mirkwood.
It wouldn't be if I were you.
Oh, like I'm so tense, but also this is gonna be awesome. Ooh, the scene has changed on your overlay, and it's super dark and foreboding. Oh boy.
Don't worry about it.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see the wonderful place that my people used to live. I'm sure it's going to be so nice.
Greenwood the
Yeah.
Great.
Fear not, we can still
it
see
says
the
it's
path
great.
in Lloyd's overlay.
It says it's great, and right there in the name, Greenwood the Great. What could go wrong?
Great and terrible.
No, she left.
Okay, so you enter into Mirkwood, and immediately, as I say, it's dark. There is a path that you've entered on. It's these cracked flagstones, all overgrown with roots, and a great many sort of leaves have like fallen to cover most of the path. So you have to squint pretty hard in the darkness to like see the path and follow it, and like guide your horses carefully along it, because the undergrowth of Mirkwood is thick with roots, and it would not be a good place for a horse to walk. And so you follow this path into Mirkwood itself. And you can hear like the really loudly of each step. It seems to echo in this place, which is odd because you would think the trees would like soak up all of the noise. But there seems to be this like strange echo that like follows you as you walk through this gloom. And several minutes will go by, into an hour, into two, as you like move through deeper into this wood, and you can see or start to see much more the signs of webs everywhere as you like look up. These like huge webs that like coat most of the sort of branches higher up of the trees, all around. And you'll see occasionally like a spider like skitter across the path. Nothing like terrifying or huge, but still notable as you like make your way further and further into the wood. And there's this just sense as if someone is like pointing a knife between your shoulder blades, this strange sense of like a foreboding danger or something not being quite right. There's always a feeling that something is watching or waiting as you like ride through Mirkwood.
Theomar can sense by his body language that Arahil can sense more of these surroundings than he can, though it doesn't put him at enough ease that he won't light a torch and hold it aloft as he plods a careful trail along, leading his horse in one hand and like the fire to guide him as he goes.
You continue, and you can see now on the ground as well webs, sort of loose, sort of cobwebs here and there across the road, sort of all around the place. There doesn't seem to be like an option to avoid, maybe through the trees across the roots and things, but certainly here there are like thick cobwebs all along the road.
The king was right. This place was once Greenwood, but when the power of Sauron fell on it, it became Mirkwood, and such creatures as this poisoned it, spread throughout it. It was supposed to be Greenwood again.
Just as dark as in days of old, but with no Dalish or Elvish hand to cull this infestation.
Grimthane says from the back, still mounted. And so it is by our hand that it shall be tended. As he looks around ominously.
To cut and burn a path through will alert any of the spiders large enough to weft their work across this trail.
To cut and burn through would be to destroy the same forest that we came here to protect under the king's orders.
I just mean burn the web, sorry, not the woods. Yeah, like to be clear, burn through and cut through the webs as we like follow the older trails, presumably sticking to a northerly direction, so we're heading towards the center and Dol Guldur.
So you're kind of standing at this like place, like the web before you, looking at them. And that feeling returns, that like feeling between your shoulder blades of something there, you think.
Perhaps fire would burn it, or a blade might cut it. But we must keep going.
Like the webs on the ground don't look like they could ensnare you, but they're definitely on the ground. You know, you'd have to like march through them, kick them away, something like that. Or you could try and go through like the trees and avoid disturbing the webs.
So Avorio will dismount and just walk up to the edge of the web and just touch it with her fingertips to feel if it's sticky or if it's silky.
Yeah, your finger sticks.
I would not take the horses this way. It sticks to my hand.
When you like pull away, it pulls a little bit with you, and then like bounces back.
We came in here knowing our path. We would only need to go straight to reach where we tried to get. If we take another route, forests may swallow us.
Oh Lord, Kami.
Grimthane spins in his saddle, the torch in his hand, the shield on his left arm, as he hears this sound, and still feeling that feeling between his shoulder blades. Spinning around behind him, see if he can spot the noise that he knows is encroaching upon them.
Yeah, I'm going to roll a perception check as well. 12.
Yeah, you can like look around up at the webs, and you can see that like one sort of like strand seems to be like vibrating a little bit as if something had moved across it.
We cannot delay, cannot tarry here too long.
Yeah, lead on, Arhael.
Do we take the path? The horses, I worry that they would get entangled if it got any thicker. She's like still on the ground next to this web, just kind of looking at it, trying to decide what to do.
If we go another path, we risk losing our way. Which do you think would be the bigger risk?
I'd rather fight a foe that I can hear and know its lair where I stand than to wander lost. Who can fight against that enemy? I say we cut and burn and drive these crawlers from their lair, but it is for your blood and aged folk to guide. The decision is yours, because I know this place not.
I know only stories, but I will proceed if that's what we were to do.
Ivoriel nods and draws out her blade and will cut through some of the web, pulling the blade free as she can and peeling the sticky strands off of it.
Zaromar will stand alongside her, blade in one hand, torch in the other, like standing guard over her as she hacks and slashes.
Yeah, it's difficult work. The webs are very sticky, it seems, around here. And though you're sort of sharp, you still have to like peel the web off each time that you pull back. But you're making progress. But still, you can hear every few moments that something skittering.
Arhael, Grimthane, be ready. I'll say kind of like over my shoulder as I imagine we're kind of like moving in a column, like pummeling through this web.
Who's at the back?
Rahel during this time is going to. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You go.
Grimthane, I believe, was.
Yeah, I believe Grimthane said he was in the back.
Correct, yeah.
Rahel's going to be keeping watch, kind of looking around, specifically looking for an eye glint from the torch. He can see in the dark, but with the torch's help, he's going to be looking to see if anything shines from the torch's light.
And Grimthane passes the torch from his right hand into his left, which has the shield strapped to it, as best he can, so that he still has some light while he hefts his spear out in the other hand.
Okay, you can give me a perception. Actually, what's your passive perception, Arahel?
15.
Okay, so too late. You see this like silk, this web, like fly from one of the nearby branches towards Grimthane. What's your armor class, Grimthane?
While I'm mounted, it is 18.
Okay, so this web catches you and your horse and like sticks you to the path. You are restrained, as is your horse at the moment, and it's just like out of nowhere, just, and then you can like see and hear that there are three just enormous spiders crawling down towards the back of your group. And we'll roll initiative, please.
I'm just going to give up on dice. The past few games I've rolled terribly. It was a 3 on the die.
This web just catches you, Grimthane, and your horse, and there's just like this thick sort of web all around. You're like trying to move and you're struggling to do so. You're restrained. As an action, you can try and break out of the web, but your horse will also have to do that if you want to try and ride your horse.
Yeah, that's exactly what he'd do. He can't afford to throw his spear and potentially lose it in the darkness of the Mirkwood. So instead, he slashes at the webs with it. I'm trying to free himself and Galmund if he can.
Yep, you can make me a strength check, please.
Yeah. 21.
Okay. Yeah, so you're able to like pull the webbing away and like begin to make enough room for you to like move your top half of your body, and you begin to like slash and bash down at the webs around your horse. Though that will be another action to free the horse. But your top half is free, and you're able to like move that as you wish. But that's your action. Is there anything else you could like to do?
That'll have to be it for now, I think. Yeah, because I won't be able to try and free Garland either. Or is she able to try and free herself?
I don't think so. I think when you're writing, she has certain actions she can take, and I think that would be like a turn, for her to do that.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, Thamar.
Can I see the closest of? Well, I'm sure I can because they broke cover to fleeing. But how far are the enemy from me? The closest spider.
Okay, so there's probably about 5-10 feet between each of you, and they're like coming down towards Grimthane. So but they're still
From above.
Yeah, from above. Yeah, so they're still like weirdly in unison. They're all like coming down at the same time. 3 of them. They are 15 feet up on the trees at this stage. Yeah, and you're probably 15 foot from Grimthane.
I'm going to move up to where he is, like stand alongside Galmwood and Grimthane, looking up as these spiders approach. I'm going to take the dodge action as they descend. Oh, will I risk it? Yeah, I will. I'll just take the dodge action, and that's it for me.
Okay, no problem. The spiders like begin to descend down. One of them is going to fire a web at you, Thamar, with disadvantage. Definitely a miss. It's a total of 13, which definitely won't hit you. So there'll be this like, and it'll splat on the ground next to you, but just about miss you. The second one is going to move and crawl up to where you are, Grimthane, and like climb onto the back of your horse, so that you're like face to face with this disgusting creature, and it's going to try and sting you. Fucking critical. Get the fuck out of here. It's like the first attack I roll.
No.
Okay, so you take 10 piercing damage, but then I need you to make me a con save, please.
Yo. Con save is 19.
Okay, so you can feel this like stinger like shoved into your side, like you weren't expecting it. You've got the torch in one hand with your shield, and there's this of like the stinger at the end of this spider's like disgusting abdomen as its like legs wrap around your shoulders to climb up on you, and you can feel like something like some venom poured into you, but you're able to like resist its effect. You feel a little bit woozy for a moment, but you're able to like shake it off. Okay, and the third is going to crawl towards you, Arahel, and it's going to try and also sting you. But it probably misses with a 15.
That hits.
Okay. So 3 points of damage, but I'll need you to make me a con save.
Ooh, nice. That is 18 on the die, so that's 19.
Okay. Yeah, much the same. You can feel like this sort of like temporary wooziness, but you're able to like shrug it off and continue acting in the way that you wish. Okay, Arahel, it's your turn.
Arahel is going to feel this monstrous stinger pierce in, feel like the pulse of the venom. He'll shake it off though, and he's going to pull out his this beautiful elven curved sword, and just gonna try to, as best as he can, bring it down into this spider. and probably is gonna do it. That's a 24.
Yep.
Alrighty. Do I have somebody within 5 feet? Do I have sneak attack right now?
I don't necessarily think so, no, because I think you're watching like single file. Unless Thamar might be actually, because he moved down between you and Grimthane, right?
Yeah, next to Grimthane, but there's horses in between us in a column.
Yeah.
So the only person I'm adjacent to allies is Galmond and Grimthane, I believe.
Yeah, I don't think at the moment, Jeff.
Okay. 8 damage then.
Okay. It lets out this like this like terrifying shriek. And it seems to be like clacking its like mandibles together. And like it turns its like disgusting head to like one of the other spiders and like clacks its mandibles at it. So it looks like they're speaking or like shrieking at each other. So all you hear is this disgusting screech. 8. Okay.
And then, real quick, I'm gonna use my cunning action to disengage and move towards Ivoriel and post up next to her.
Okay. The spider is on your horse though, as well, because I guess you were on it, right?
I think only Grimthane was the one who was mounted, right, guys?
Okay. So the rest of you would
That
be
was my
like
understanding, yeah.
walking with them. Okay. Well, it will still be like
Yeah.
there, you know. But that's fine. You can disengage away from it. Okay. Ivoriel.
So Ivoriel sees this happening, these horrid creatures, and the one nearest to her has just stung Arahel, and she'll take this broadsword, still sticky, with the web on it, and she'll step forward and swipe at one of the legs. 17 to hit.
That'll hit.
It's going to be 11 damage.
Okay. Yeah, this is the same one, right? That Arahel struck. You like slice off the bottom half of one of the legs, and there's this like black, sort of thick blood that like pours onto the ground. And again, it's like and this like awful scream as you like hack into it. Okay, and back to the top, Grimthane.
Grimthane grits his teeth with a bit of a battle cry as he cops a stinger from this spider that's climbed up onto Garmund and himself and wrapped its gnarly legs around him, and uses his bonus action to second wind. We gain 5 HP, and then use the action for Garmund to try and break free of the webs, regain some mobility.
Yep. It's a horse and it's a strength check, so I just have no question that Galman is able to do it. So like at your command, she's able to like pull her legs free and finally be like free of the webs that were sticking her in place.
Excellent. And then I wonder actually. So I'd still have my movement. So I think actually, now being free, it would rouse Gumland into a bit of a charge around to try and see if we can shake off the spider. Although I suppose that's the just move.
So I wonder, because it's on you, I don't necessarily think you're like disengaging or like pulling away from it. So I don't think it'll trigger opportunity attack because it's like literally on top of you. So yeah, you can like begin to ride as the spider like hangs onto you with its legs.
Okay, perfect. Because then I'm going to use my action surge and try and reach around because it's such a big thing. Reach around with the tip of my spear and try and stab at it.
Okay, go for it.
Oh. That's a miss.
Okay.
That's a 6. But then I'll use my second bonus action from the action surge to try and bash it with my shield. I get that from my Weapon Master archetype.
Nice.
To make a shield attack. That's a bit more like it. So that's modified 20 to hit.
Yep.
All right. 6 damage.
Nice. Yeah. You are able to like bash the shield into a little bit, and you can hear like a as it like tries to hang on, and it's still able to do so for now. Okay, Thamar.
I'm going to run over to where Grimthane's riding around this spider on the back and try and vanquish it. Try and drive the Drake's blade through like the big abdomen of the spider.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, it's going to be a critical fail on the first. So I'm going to drop my torch as a free and draw a dagger as an interaction.
Yep.
So I've missed with the first strike with the dagger coming up behind that. That's a 21 to hit.
Yes, sir.
Which will be 6 piercing damage. Then I'll action surge, the same as Keel, and do another strike with the Drake Sword for a 15 to hit.
That'll do it.
Okay, here we go. 11 slashing damage.
Yep.
The bonus for a 17 on the die, which hits for 7 piercing damage.
Oof, yeah, that's going to kill it.
Yeah, just thrust until a couple of them hit and puncture the exoskeleton. And it falls off the back of the horse, clattering to the ground, all legs curled upward. I'll turn, looking around just for the next foe.
Yeah, it screams in agony and like hits the ground. Its legs curled up, and like the one that hadn't hit the ground yet, that had fired the web, like looks in its direction and like clatters something at it, but there's no response.
You said they're speaking to each other. That's not in black speech by any chance, is it?
No, it's not actually speech at
Okay.
all. It's like some sort of like clattering sort of insectoid language that it's not actually a language. Yeah, maybe if you were like a wizard you could understand it, but it's some sort of mysterious darkness. Okay, the remaining spiders, the one by Arahale, is going to basically follow him, and actually, would it? It's hungry. It's just going to try and bite your horse. Instead.
Is that the one I cut the leg off of? The one next to Arahale?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It's going to try and bite that horse and sting it so it can't get away. It'll hit for sure. Okay, just 3 damage. Can you make me a con save for your horse, Arahel? I don't know what the hell con a horse has.
I reckon it'd have a couple.
Probably decent.
Got a 13 on the die, so whatever a horse has plus that.
I reckon a horse has +2.
I'm looking now if you want. Yeah, +1 by the look of it. That's just for riding horse.
Riding horse. Yeah, okay. So yeah, there's this like stinger sinks into your horse and it like lets out this scream and then like will like fall down and cease moving almost immediately. Like a couple of seconds will go by and it'll just be like stuck in this rictus of fear. Okay. That was one. The other one is going to crawl the rest of the way down the tree over to its companion, and it's going to run up next to it, and then it's going to try and sting you, Evoria, because it's next to its mate. It's got pack tactics. For a 17 all up.
Yep, that'll do it.
Okay, you'll take 7 piercing damage, and I need a con save, please.
Ooh. Yo, that's a 19 on the die.
Okay, nice. So yeah, it seems that this poison isn't as virulent as it affected the horse, but doesn't seem to affect you. You're able to like hold on. Again, you like feel a little bit dizzy for a moment, and like sort of like you have some dead legs, but then the feeling returns, and you're able to act. That's the spiders. Arahel.
Seeing the spider continue on despite being hit twice, is kind of surprised at its resilience. Like hasn't really fought much outside of training, and he's mostly just relying on elven instinct. But it carries him regardless forward towards the spider one last time, hopefully, as he stabs at it. It's going to be a 19, which should do it. And then it's going to be 14 total damage.
Oh yeah, it's dead. Another disgusting
just like-
scream. You go.
Yeah. I was just saying, Airhill would just like dash with like a almost like a leap towards it, with just like thrusting with his sword, just cut right into wherever was closest.
Yeah, it catches it like in the like swollen thorax, and it'll like scrunch onto the ground and roll up, in that disgusting way that spiders do. Ivoriel.
Ivoriel, there's just the one left, the one that stung her, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, she swings out with her sword, catching it for a 23 to hit, and
Yes.
11 damage again.
Okay, nice.
Rolling really well on that.
It screeches and like rears back onto its back legs, lifting its front. Grimthane.
Grimthane wheels around, having Theomar dispatch the spider upon the back of him, and Galmund wheels around, seeing one foe remaining, hefts his spear and charges towards it, and is sent right off course from the clattering of the spider corpse falling behind and getting caught a little bit in Galmund's leg as he rolls a natural 1 to hit.
Yeah, close, but not quite. Galman's like legs, hooves get stuck in some webbing, and so the speed isn't quite what you expected, and so it's a little bit high as the spear kind of like whistles, but doesn't quite connect. Thamar.
Is Arhael adjacent to the remaining spider?
No, he had just killed. So Ivoriel is at the third spider.
Okay, I'll rush up behind it then and try and plunge the blade down into it, and then the dagger as well, and rip at its exposed back if I can, for a crit and a 14 to hit.
14. Yeah, also does it.
Okay, this is going to be painful. 9, 15, 29
Yeah.
slashing damage.
Like slice right through, and these like disgusting spider guts like spill onto the ground. It like screams and like pulls away. But then the second strike with the dagger goes right through its head, and it like wriggles a few times on the ground. Its mandibles like clacking, as if screaming for help. But then it dies and it is silent.
But that he'll turn and use if he has any movement left to go to whoever looks most grievously injured.
Grimthane's breathing heavily, and he probably even just seeing that the danger is done for the moment, just drop his spear and the torch from his shield arm, and reach around and try to, as best he can, tend or have a look at how bad the wound in his back is. But he's not having any luck. Obviously, he can't turn that in that way.
When you like examine the sting wounds, like they're not very deep or particularly like wide. They actually look like they'll heal pretty easily. Looks like the poison was the dangerous part, and it looks like you've resisted that. Judging by Arhel's horse, which is like on its side and not moving.
Yeah, I was just about to get to that. Airhail is going to like move over to the horse and like kneel down next to it, like put a hand on it and try to get a sense of whether or not it's paralyzed to the point where it's not breathing, or if it is still alive.
It's definitely alive. It looks sort of terrified, though it cannot seem to move.
I think seeing this Grimthane would immediately dismount Galmund, paying no more heed to his own wound, aside from a quick internal thanks that he seems to have resisted it, because if it's worked this quickly upon the horse, surely it would have on him too if it had taken hold. And he goes over to to the poor creature and draws his dagger from his belt, crouches down beside it. And if nobody stops him,
Hold, Grimthane. It may recover. These things, these creatures, I do not know if it is permanent. It may simply be a while.
he hesitates, closes his eyes. I cannot abide such suffering, especially
You
in the
must.
horse.
You must, for there may certainly be more of it to come. The poison likely dulls the horse's senses anyway, I'll lie. And say one of us should care for the beast while we cut on.
He returns the dagger to the sheath at his belt. Very well. And he just spends a few moments stroking the horse's face, and as it's laying on its side, I assume its eyes wide and it's breathing heavily. And he,
Voriel's probably. Sorry.
Okay, I was just going to say, as he does with Gelmund, sings a gentle song in Rohirric, trying to just calm it. Then, if he's not going to end it at the moment.
Yeah, I'll give Voriel a reprieve from cutting and burning, and I'll busy myself with that.
So are you going to wait for the horse to become okay, or are you going to continue on and cut through the webs? I didn't quite.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't imagine I'm getting like too fast of a like cutting so fast at the path that I would quickly lose sight or hearing of them. But yeah, like a hack through.
Okay, gotcha.
And like obviously, like within reason, if I'm going to be like half an hour away from the horse and it still hasn't recovered, I'll stop and move back. But doesn't, like, the horse being still doesn't require four of us to do nothing.
Yeah. So you'll find that like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour will go by, and the horse will continue to be where it is.
I think even after half an hour, Grimthane would pull out the dagger again, and plead with Ivoriel, if Theomar's not nearby, just plead with Ivoriel to let him put it out of its misery.
Lloyd, could I roll any sort of a check to know if this is
Yes.
something that will wear off?
Shadow lore.
I have that. Well, let's see if I can roll it.
I also have Shadow Lore, so maybe I could help consult Ivoriel, share our knowledge to give her advantage.
I rolled a 19 on the die, so it's a 21 for me.
Okay, I guess you would have heard, like knowing more than most about Mirkwood, of the spiders here, and that they'll like sting their prey with like this poison that will keep them from moving, as if they're dead, for a full day. In which time they'll like wrap them up in webs and hang them from the trees, bring them back to like the spider colony. By the time the victim awakes, they'll be like so wrapped up that there's nothing that they can do.
As Grimthane is asking, she goes, You must speak with Arahel. It would be a full day, I fear.
You cannot
Do not
spare a
have
full
the
day.
luxury of a day.
Do we have
Yeah,
the luxury of leaving a mount behind?
Leave it to a fate. Leave it helpless for a full day to the fate of whatever else lies within these woods. That is a chance at life, at least. we
Or
can,
perhaps a chance at greater suffering.
indeed,
Leaving it here, especially in the den of spiders, there's no way it would survive.
we cannot take it back out. Cannot spare that time either.
Yeah, Erhel would just kind of give a dark nod towards Grimthane with the dagger.
He would return the dark nod and turn his gaze back to Evoriel, and just hold the gaze for a moment, just maybe waiting for a similar sort of gesture that she is acknowledging that this is what has to be done.
She nods and turns swiftly to walk the path that Theomar has gone, not wanting to be near this.
Grimthane nods darkly to himself and turns with a tear in his eye down his cheek as he approaches the felled horse, still wide-eyed, but no longer struggling for breath. And he sings a short farewell hymn in Rohirric as he drags the blade of the dagger across its throat, puts it to rest.
It can't like scream or anything like that. But eventually, like the paralyzed muscles will relax, and you can close the horse's eyes.
And he
Tamar,
immediately gets to work, maybe just digging a shallow grave, since Dayamar's off doing his work anyway.
yeah, it'll be hard work here with the roots to find a place big enough to bury a horse. But if you're determined, you can find a place that will be off the road. In the meantime, Thamar, you've like made pretty good progress, like chopping, and you've gotten to the end of like where the webs are on the road. They're still in the trees and things around you, but you think you've like cleared enough space that you could like walk along the road without getting stuck or like activating any of the webs.
Yeah, he hacks as he goes, and every so often he'll carve an X, or maybe not an X, I don't know, whatever, like a symbol he would use to stave off that fear that may be lost in here, or the trail reroutes itself. He'll like mark every 10th tree or so often as he like hacks and slashes and burns.
So a bit of time would go by, and eventually you would like regather along the path and continue along your way, still feeling like that strange sense of unease. Every step in Mirkwood feels that way. You like come to what you think is the end of the first day because you're tired, although it's hard to know because you cannot see the sun above at any sort of point. And so it might be night, it might be day. You don't really know, and time seems to flow strangely here. But nonetheless, you like come to the point several hours later when you can hear it's like talking in the distance.
I'll stop and crouch and let go of my horse's bridle and kind of put a hand to its forehead so it quiets itself as well, and kind of look around for some signal from Arhael. I assume he has like excellent hearing.
Yeah, upon hearing the voices, he would kind of like put a hand up for people to stop, and to stop moving, and he would try to catch a glimpse of what they were hearing and or seeing.
Yeah, perception, please.
Yes, sir. That is a 10 on the die, so 15.
Yeah, it's speech, though I don't think you understand it. It's like grating and almost painful to hear. It's the opposite of Elvish. There's no song possible in this language. It's black speech.
I understand and can speak it,
Yeah, so
but my passive perception's only 14 compared to the 15 then. I don't know if that makes a difference.
well, once it's like pointed out to you, I think you could like listen more carefully and you can hear this like discussion happening. You can hear like a voice. this like weaselly sort of voice saying, I don't want to go any further. And then this bigger voice saying, shut your mouth.
I'll translate that for the benefit of the party, trying to control my breathing while I draw my blade. Is there any further speech?
Yeah, just this like stupid conversation, the kind of thing that you hear orcs talk about all the time. This sort of like complaining, this like absolute lack of discipline as they like move as a unit. This is the kind of thing that you expect from orcs. One of them is like complaining about him being tired, and you can hear him like complaining about his leg. While like obviously the bigger one like shuts him down over and over.
Does it just sound like the two voices?
You could give me. I'd have to give me a perception check because
Okay.
it'll be hard to tell the difference in black speech.
I got 6 in the die for that, so 20 all up.
Yes, there are. You think 4 speakers? Two are complaining, 2 are not. The other 2 are like telling them, like, "Come on, we have to keep going."
I'm like whispering like translation for this for the benefit of the party as I hear it.
Yeah, Erhel will look to Thamar, I think, at this point. Like, they may be in Elvish land, but orcs are his world. Maybe kind
We
of
should
like raise a
slaughter.
quizzical eyebrow.
We should slaughter all but one of them and question him hardly. He may know more of these fires of Dol Guldur. I may be able to distract and lure them such that you can move around with our party and we can attack them all at once. You can all move quietly where I cannot.
We can't stop here. This is where Ungoliant's ilk are. They'll eat us.
There are more spiders here which may be drawn to the clamour and the blood.
But my leg! This goes on over and over. You think they're passing, basically, if you are like along the road, they're on the left-hand side of the road and they're moving from like ahead of you. Basically, they're going to be going the opposite direction to you. You could all hear this, like now at this stage, this black speech, but to you it would sound like Ushnak, Urnak, that kind of like guttural, and it would just be like nonsense, I guess. Though, like, still the sound of it is sort of innately unpleasant.
Once it's engaged, Grimthane charge into their ranks. We'll butcher them. Remember to keep one alive. At that, he'll let go of his horse and sheath his blade and move up on the road as if going to approach the Orcish party.
Oh yeah, okay.
Erhel will kind of slip into the side of the path, like into the trees, and attempt to kind of follow in with Thamar, but hidden as best he can with a 20 stealth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to move quickly. I'll move slowly, both for the benefit of Arhael and also to be non-threatening to these orcs as I move like plainly in the middle of the road towards them.
They'll hear you like a embarrassingly late time as you like approach. One of them will say, "Oi, oi!" And the big one will like stop, and you'll see him. Like, you can already see him before they hear you. And he'll like stop and like look. You can see that there are 4. One of them is like quite big. You think an Uruk, which is like the greater class of orc. The other 3 look like snaggers, like slaves. One of them is like dragging his leg behind him. He looks like injured. And like they stop and like look. And the big one, like his eyes will like narrow and he'll smile. And he'll like say now in Westron, "What do we have here?"
I'll say in black speech, one above yourself. I was summoned by the master to Dol Guldur. I assume by your presence that I am close. Take me to him.
He like looks from just for a moment like back to the other ones,
Well, quickly, or I'll have you whipped for impudence.
He like is confused by it. I'm gonna. Yeah. We have to go to. And he's like kind of muttering under his breath, like he's afraid to tell you. No, there are no men in like orcish hierarchy except those at the top, and you would know that as well. And so he does seem like confused and nervous by it. This is not what he was expecting. Back to Dol Guldur. We've been walking
Is there
all
some
day.
other? Is there some other I must reward?
No, it's me. It's me. He'll like step forward and like bang his fist on his chest.
Spiders ate my horse, so I must walk, and so must you.
We were attacked by them as well.
They grow thickly here. I am hoping to help your master to quell that issue. Tell me, whose tribe are you, and who speaks for your kith?
Black Blade.
Of course.
Bosses. Dogrook.
He waves his hand as that's not like that's insequential now.
He's like scratching the back of his head. Like he doesn't really know how. Like you think this orc has never interacted with a human before. Like he doesn't understand. He's like low down in the pecking order. You can see like the three sort of like smaller ones have like sort of almost subconsciously like moved behind him in a sort of like staying out of your wrath sort of move.
What was the name he mentioned? Black Arm?
Black Blade.
Black Blade. We'll have to pick a new name. I have a gift for him. Sanctioned by the master himself for your loyalty.
I'll bring it to him.
He'll unsheath the drake-slaying blade and call now and bring it down upon the middle of this orc's head.
All right.
I'll jump out from stealth and go for him.
Okay, so you can roll initiative, and the two of you who were like I don't think you could stealth on a horse.
No, Grimthane's to stay back and then like charge in, like.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
So can we roll initiative, and then Arahel and Theomar can make attacks.
So I'm going for, if I can, going for the injured one, the one that was clearly walking with like a limp, for a 15.
Oh, that'll hit for sure.
All right, and it's going to be 15 total damage, actually.
Are you shooting with a bow? Or with a sword?
Sword.
Yeah, okay.
I'd have jumped out like when Theomar went in.
So you like step out from behind the tree and just like effortlessly shove the sword into this orc's head, and he like twitches and hits the ground, just immediately. 22. All right, so Nico, you got a
17 damage.
Okay. Okay, so Grabnak is the orc. You just like bring the sword down right between his eyes, and it like smashes into him, and he like falls back. And he doesn't seem to be dead. He's like terribly injured, and he like rolls onto the ground. No, master! But the other like orcs behind him are like, screaming that like they're attacked, and he like will begin to like narrow his eyes and roar. Okay, and then it's Theomar's turn.
Excellent. This one on the ground is going to be butchered mercilessly and swiftly, hopefully, for an 18 to hit, and then a crit again with the dagger for the bonus action.
Yeah, you just tell me he's dead.
13 for the sword and 8 for the dagger.
Yeah. That's
So
well
it's just
over.
a blade through the head and a dagger through the chest, and I rip them both out and move. Is there any orcs adjacent to me at this point after I slay him? I know you said the smaller ones had
I
gathered
muted
behind him.
myself to talk. Yeah, so
Sorry.
there's one was right behind him, and then there's like two which you would know are slaves. You can like tell by the look of them; they're like pale skinned and like small and runty. You can like tell they're both uh, like crouched down, hidden. Although one of them has been like dispatched immediately by Arahale, and then there's one other orc who's standing right behind Grabnak, or what's left
I'll
of
point
Grabnak.
with the bloody dagger. Take that one alive. Kill the rest in common. And I'm just going to move so I'm in the midst of those small, the slaves.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's it for me.
Okay. Voriel.
Evoria will come forward through the path with her bow drawn, and she's heard Theomar and seen him point to the one to keep alive, which was bigger than the little kind of pale-skinned one, right?
Yeah, so there's two left. One of whom is like I say, small and pale, and he's got like a little shitty bow. The other is like an actual orc, you think, as opposed to like a snagga.
Yeah, she'll aim at the little thing. Will an 11? I don't know, 11's not gonna hit.
No, not even this orc is that terrible.
Mm. So the arrow goes wide, but she prepares to knock another.
Okay.
Oh, and actually no, I'm good.
Okay. Grimthane.
Grimthane will hold an action, ready a charge, basically, for if they try and flee the way that they were heading, which is the way he's hiding, basically. So yeah, if any of them sort of come towards his direction, then he'll charge out and probably ride them down.
Okay, perfect. Grabnak is slain. Okay, this like last snagga archer. He like looks at the what's happened all of a sudden. He doesn't understand what's happening, but he can see that his master is dead, and so he's just going to like drop his bow and begin running like directly into the forest, hopefully away from you, all of you. So he'll disengage from you, Arahale, and then just begin running like into the woods, so like off the path. So I'm going to roll dice, and even he will go towards you, Grimthane. On odd, he will run the other direction. 6. Okay, yeah. So he just like looks around and like just begins like running on all fours, almost like in the direction of Grimthane.
Yeah, and so Grimthane would ride out to meet him with his spear tip glinting in this darkness as they fight with a 13 to hit.
That'll hit.
Right on. 8 damage.
8. Okay, that is almost enough.
Well, in that case, then, as he runs the spear through this snagga, this fleeing little creature, he wheels around and tries to reach down and knock it with his round shield, and that will be a 18 to hit with the shield, and that's 9 damage.
Yeah, so the spear like goes through the side of the orc initially, and he like looks sort of stupidly from the wound to you, and then the rim of the shield like smashes into his forehead, and like he collapses, crumpled to the ground, dead. That was a snagga. Okay, Arahel.
So seeing the only one remaining standing that we had been commanded by Thamor to keep alive, Arahale will charge up and basically just attempt to hamstring it with his short sword. Just cut down at the back of its leg to try to keep it immobile.
Okay, go for it.
Alrighty, and that's going to be a 16 to hit.
Yep.
Do you just want me to roll like normal damage against it? I don't know how you want me to do it for this.
Sure. Yep.
Alrighty. That's going to be a 9 damage.
Okay. Yeah. So you're able to like it's like looking between Thaomar and you, and as it like turns to look at Thaomar, there's just this like elven precision, incredibly quick move, and it slices through the hamstrings on the right leg, and the orc like howls in pain and like falls down to the ground. You want to keep this one alive, right? So we can be out of combat because he's in no position to like make any sort of threat.
I'll come up and point the bloody Drake sword down at the thing and say in black speech, I can make your passing quick and painless. Answer my questions, filth.
Yes, yes.
How many dwell in the bones of Dol Guldur?
He like looks at you like he just genuinely doesn't know the answer to that.
How many fires?
How many?
Fires.
10.
How many tribes?
He actually wouldn't even say 10. He would just hold up his fingers. 2. Blackblade. Red
And
Tusk.
the other chieftain? Red Tusk. And whom do they serve?
The Lord.
Warshnabata. Which lord is that?
He looks at you like you must be stupid. The Burned Lord.
Who speaks? Who is the mouth of the burnt lord?
Here? Blackblade.
Why are your kin here, desecrating the greenwood?
Blackblade says so.
Why are you burning the trees?
He looks at you with this like look of like, I've already said Blackblade says so. That's as much as he like is able to explain. Blackblade says we burn and we make fires.
Has anyone other than orcs come to your camp near Dol Guldur?
He shakes his head.
Oh, I didn't realize I was muted. Sorry.
Good.
I was yabbering away there. He'll turn to his companions and say in common for their benefit, just translating the information that he just gleaned from the creature, and look for a flicker of recognition about whether they know this reference, the Burned Lord.
I am proficient in lore and shadow lore. Would that be something that I could ever know, or is this a new thing?
I have
So-
Shadow Lore as well.
It's new. Like there's no, you can't think of like a
Okay.
reference to a Burned Lord.
Yeah, I think Ivoriel is her wheels are turning and she's trying to think of anything that this might connect to, but she just comes up empty.
Can you make me a perception of Oriel?
Yeah, I can try.
Actually, Arahel as well. You definitely would know if you can see it.
That is a 15.
16 for me.
Okay, so Arahel, you can see that on the big orc that was killed, that there's a like on his helmet, there's like a symbol, and like looking closely, it's like a square with like 12 different like X's put into it.
Yeah, Arahel would kind of raise an eyebrow at the helmet, and he would lean down and pull it off of the orc's head, and kind of bring it into the torchlight. It's marked with some sigil, perhaps a symbol of this burned lord or least the orc tribes here.
Thelma will step on the chest of that orc. Is this his mark, the mark of the burned lord?
He like looks at the thing and then to you. And he says, I cannot say.
You will, and he'll like twist his boot and blade in the thing.
I cannot.
Borona, speak it, I'll command him.
He's like he like trying to move his lips to like say something, but it's like he's unable to. He's like trying to. I cannot.
I'll look to Ivoriel. Is this some witchery?
She will shake her head and look at the thing. If he will not speak to you, it could be some sort of binding, some curse upon him, something that prevents a name being said, prevents information being passed. There are tales of very dark magics. But those were lost long ago.
Does
I'll
power
turn
like
back.
that even still exist here? From what I had read, those sorts of beings have long since passed.
Let us pray that Red Tusk and Black Blade are lying to their minions of some greater power here, but prepare for the worst. He can nod even if he cannot speak, I'll think, and so I'll say in black speech again, more menacingly, holding the helmet, is this his mark?
You can see he's like squirming, and like not like he's trying to escape, but like as if he's in pain. And he's like looking at it, and then to you.
I think that's answer enough, even if he doesn't speak it. So I'll kind of nod to Arhael that we must think that it is. We should learn more of that mark. Tell me, creature, what's the safe path that you would pick back to your camp?
He's like still writhing on the ground. Looks like he's like flush and like warm. And he's like, is this way a road until you come to the great stone?
And what perils and what guards?
Spiders, orcs.
And how do you get past Ungolian spawn?
We feed them.
Feed them what?
Slaves.
At that, he'll bring the blade up and punch the thing in the side of the head with the hilt and haul his slave for Ungolian up and sheath the blade. And then tell my companions in common the information that we just got. A road ahead
Slaves.
and a monolith, Ungolian spawn, which must be sated to be passed without violence, and a camp thereon where this thing and his gits dwell. I thought to use him rather than a horse for the spiders, if there are no objections.
Very well.
You'll hear none from me either. You know the creatures of the dark better than any of us. If that's your suggested course of action, I will trust you.
So you take
As you are.
You
Sorry?
Take you take this orc now unconscious and like throw him onto the back of one of the horses and begin to move deeper into the workwood.
Can I bind him with the reins from the dead horse?
Oh yeah,
Like
definitely.
bind his hands and feet? Yep, cool.
Yep. Like Thamar, you've dealt with like much craftier orcs than this, and like you think that this one is like barely functioning as an orc even before he was like battered. And so you like tie him and bind him on the back of a horse and begin to make your way deeper into the Mirkwood towards this strange direction that the orc had given you and towards the Hill of Dark Sorcery, or Dol Guldur as it's called. But that's probably where we'll end it for today. Thanks very much, guys. That was really fun. And we'll see you all next time if you watch. Thanks.